Hello, everybody. Welcome to the United Stand. We're back again. It was so good last week that we've got him back. He's not got a lot to do anyway, but actually he probably has. Probably very, very busy. But good to have you back on, DT. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm all right. 13 days in isolation.
I tell you what, I've got to start off with it. I only saw the tweet before, about 10 minutes before we were doing this. I saw they got you. We spoke about Robbie last week. Was it Hamburg centre-back Eriksson?
Oh, mate. I can't believe it. I see it and I thought, let me just quickly divert away from it. I'll try and get away from it. But no,
it's already clipped and done.
Yeah, the only bonus from it was probably the fact that it was one of the super chats. So they actually paid me to say it.
Yeah, there is a bonus with that. There is a bonus.
So yeah, if you want to pay me to say rude words, then be my guest. It's not a problem.
We are gonna take a lot of your questions. What I really like, and I've seen Robbie doing this with Troops the other day, and I do like it, and I think it'll work well for us, is when people give us two players and we discuss who we think is the best one. Don't have to be an Arsenal United. We'll leave that towards the end though, because I want to start off about something a bit serious. I've been speaking to people lately about what's going on, and you're self-isolating, and I'm starting to hear more and more people dying of this. Not directly, I know, but I know people who know people. So it's a very, very serious thing. And I think football is our escapism, and I think football has a massive part to play on this. And I've got to say, I'm disappointed what I've heard. I know it's Norwich, Newcastle and Spurs from the Premier League, but Spurs I'm going to go at because they're a Champions League club. They could be in the Champions League next year if the season gets voided because they finished fourth, and so could you. Yeah. Apparently, they've put a lot of their employees onto furlough, which is this government scheme whereby the government will pay 80% of their wages to keep them in work. Doesn't sit right with me when you're still paying Harry Kane 150 grand a week and you're still making all this money. I just think football. I know it's the government's fault really because the system is there to be used for that. But I know people who run pubs ain't got no money at the moment. They've got not had anything from the government. I know self-employed people. I just don't think morally this sits right for football clubs to do it. And I don't think United are going to do it. But what's your thought if Arsenal go down that route?
I don't agree with it either. And it's not just because it's Spurs. But like you said, there's Newcastle. That doesn't surprise me in any way, shape or form because Mike Ashley's a parasite. And he's the biggest leech going. So that doesn't surprise me. Norwich. That surprises me a little bit because they do go off this whole family club vibe and how they got this really close connectivity with everybody. But Spurs, I don't want it to sound like I'm going in on them because it's Spurs. But like you said, they're the Premier League side. They're now asking the government basically for help, but yet you're still paying all your players these high wages. Daniel Levy, the year that they created the stadium, the first year, he got £7 million for that season. He got a £4 million bonus for building the stadium, having the project completed. And I sat there and thought, hold on a minute. The headline is Daniel Levy takes a pay cut. And I'm sitting there like, your annual salary is £3 million. Oh, what a lovely guy you are for taking 20% off your annual salary. Oh, what a nice guy. Should we all stand up and give you a round of applause? There's people out there in serious situations, like you just said. There's landlords, there's people within all walks of life that are in all trades, and they're the ones that really need this. And then you've got clubs that are multi-million-pound organisations basically sitting there with their hands out like, please, sir, can I have some more, sir? And it doesn't sit right with me. And the government, yes, it is their fault because they're the ones who set up this scheme and everything. But I don't think when they set it up that they would have actually thought businesses of multi-million-pound businesses that are earning £200 million, etc., are going to be the ones that are coming to the forefront and saying, can you help me? Yes, they're a business. They're on company house like the rest of us. But there's a difference in grading. And it don't sit right with me at all. And if Arsenal do it, I won't be happy in any way, shape or form. I think it's embarrassing.
It is. And I think that there are people who've said to me when I tweeted it this morning, well, clubs rely on match day revenue. They're going to lose money. I get that. And we need to protect these people who work at clubs, whether it's, stewards or, catering staff, whatever. But there's an easy situation. You don't take 80% off the government, because ultimately, let's be real about this. The government, 80% that's going there, that's us paying for it, because we're paying this back in tax over the next few years. Yeah. The government haven't got a pot to piss in, really. But you can keep your staff on. I mean, look, I'll use United, and we're not a club doing this. And you could use Arsenal, but let's say Spurs. You can keep that staff on by getting all your first-team players to take a 70% pay cut, which is what Barcelona have done, and that pays for everybody else. If we're in this together, we're in this together. I know a mate who's works in a pub. He can't earn anything. I've had a chat with him. I do a lot of charity work for Marie Curie. They've emailed me basically cap in hand saying we're going to lose a load of money, and I'll try and do stuff for them as well, because people, that's what we all can do. But football, we spoke about that last week. When will football come back? It is about money, getting football back. I don't think anyone can deny that. But they can do a lot of good in this time. And certainly we don't need football and a PR disaster like this. There's enough money in there, and everyone's got a tighten the belt.
Yeah. The thing is that what I hope comes out of this whole situation is that everybody opens their eyes to how greedy the people at the top within football are. The fact that they're talking today, that there's apparently a meeting on Friday, and they're going to be discussing getting the season underway behind closed doors in May. And I look at it and I just sit there and I think, there's people dying. And we're not talking one or two. We're talking thousands and thousands of people are dying across the world. And all you care about is getting football back underway, because you might have to pay Sky and BT back £700 million. Yeah, if you don't start next season, it's going to cost you over £1 billion. So it's
$3 billion apparently.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's very, very clear, very evident to everybody now what is the priority. The fact that leagues and everyone, I understand that they've got to make, contingency plans, and they've got to speak about certain things, but you cannot sit there and start asking the Premier League to get back underway in 3-4 weeks time, when we're in the middle of what we're in the middle of. There's people dying, like Spain, Italy. We don't even know what's going on in China at the moment. China are in some massive lockdown in terms of broadcasting and the internet and everything. But there's reports coming back from people that are in China that are able to get word out, and they're saying they're in a massive lockdown. And that they've got more, cases of the coronavirus. There's like a second wave. But because the organizations over there have shut down the internet, shut down any forms of communication, it's kind of like behind closed doors. China's like behind closed doors. So you don't really know what's going on over there. You can't be asking to play football in 4 weeks' time or so and locking players up in World Cup style camps so that you're locked away from everybody, and you've got to play games at a neutral venue. How does that even work as well? Because what about the teams that have already gone to away clubs, Arsenal, and they're waiting for their home advantage? Where's the home advantage now? All it does is circle around the fact they care about money.
Definitely. Sharpen the mind a little bit about football. We had Jack Grealish at the weekend. I spoke to Robbie about this on Monday. I'd be interested to get your opinions on it. I think we could all, you can have your opinion on it. I'll ask you about it. But Grealish, Arsenal, does what he's done at the weekend turn you off him? I mean, is he a player that you would have been happy to take at Arsenal? Is there a barrier of... we've had it with Giggs, we've had it with Cantona, and we ignored it because they were great players. Do we ignore these sort of things? Or?
Well, the thing is, we've had disciplinary stuff in the past with Jack Wilshere and Szczesny, for example. Ultimately, that's why Szczesny was kicked out of the club. But I look at what happened, and under normal circumstances, drink driving's bad anyway. Crashing into cars and doing a runner, that's bad. But that is something that you will probably end up forgetting in the bigger scheme of things in a few weeks' time. You could get over that. But given the current situation, the fact that he done a video telling everybody to stay home, protect the NHS, And 24 hours later, he's going around his mate's house, getting on the piss, driving his car home at 4 o'clock in the morning, smashing into loads of cars, then doing a runner, and then conceivably looking like he's trying to cover it up and kind of like, oh, I don't know what happened here, sort of thing. For me, that don't sit well with, the way that he's conducted himself. He's not a kid. He's not 18, 19 years old. He's 24 years old. He's the captain of Aston Villa. He's a man, and he should be responsible enough and sensible enough to, be the role model that he is. And that's what he is ultimately. He's a role model to, millions of people. And Manchester United, Arsenal, even Chelsea, there's been talk about, the clubs that he could go to. But I think that maybe that might put a lot of them off. Speaking Arsenal-wise, Mikel Arteta seems very disciplinarian in his way. Is that the kind of player that Mikel Arteta would want in his squad? Probably not, to be honest. And I think he may well have ruined his chances by his antics.
I think that's a good point, because Arteta, although he's played a lot in England, he's still a foreign coach. And I think, especially playing under Pep, for a fact, Pep ain't going to touch a player like Grealish. And Pep will just be like, I'm such a good coach, I can get somebody else from abroad who's as good as him, who won't give me any of that headache. So I'll avoid it. It's not worth it. And maybe that's the sort of road Arteta would go down. I certainly think Klopp thinks like that. Don't know whether Solskjaer thinks like that. And we're about to find out. I'd like to think that I'll trust Solskjaer what he does because he's the Manchester United manager. But I think you look at teams like Manchester City, and I know they're very boring compared to an Arsenal and United. They don't have the attraction that, brands love people like Aubameyang. They love people like Pogba. Man City don't really have that. But then Man City are winning titles. And, there is that profession. I do think it's important. The professionalism and the brand world has to merge. And Beckham did it very, very well. But you've still got to be a professional footballer at the end of the day. And I do worry about people like Jack Grealish and some of the players we've had at United in the past, whether it's Memphis, and maybe you've got some as well who, it's that you can make a lot of money with your brands and everything like that, but you can also get it wrong. And I think maybe Arteta, you've got a manager there that is maybe going to have the same sort of mindset as Pep, where realistically it's about what someone delivers on the pitch. And you can take a 10 out of 10 player who's a problem off the pitch, but they'll probably take a 9 out of 10 player who's going to be consistent on the pitch because you're going to get more out of them.
Yeah, fully agree. And that's the thing, like you said, the Pep Guardiola factor probably is key as well, given the fact that Arteta was underneath him for so long. And he is a foreign coach. And we know that a lot of the foreign coaches and their culture is against drinking. Don't get me wrong, they do like to have a glass of wine after a game, and it's been pretty well renowned in the years gone by that Ferguson and Wenger, and they all used to go in their office having a little drink and whatnot, but they don't like the players to be in that drinking culture.
Well, your club had it, just to jump in there because I'll forget, your club, like our club in the late 80s, had Robson, McGrath, Whiteside, big drinking culture. Arsenal had it, and Wenger basically got rid of it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He came in and he was shocked. He was like, what on earth is going on here? And then the only person at Arsenal at that time when Wenger came in that was of the model that you want was Dennis Bergkamp. And he said that I've seen interviews with Ian Wright, and he said he completely changed the culture. And he said just everything Bergkamp done. Ian Wright was Bergkamp's roommate, which sounds the most bizarre combination anyway. You could just, it's like chalk and cheese. But he said that when he watched Bergkamp, like on away days and stuff, he would be wearing full pajamas, slippers, going to bed early. And Ian Wright's like, what's all this about? And he was like, a week later, Ian Wright turns up, full slippers, like pajamas. He was just like, wanted to be like him. So it changed the culture. But yeah, this is 2020. It's not 1990. And
well, it's amazing, isn't it, that Grealish, I mean, look, I know we're on lockdown, but I still think as a professional footballer, look, we're not having football back in May. We know that, but we might get it back in June or July. This ain't the summer holidays. You should still be, all the United players, I see it, are doing fitness plans. Jack Grealish is off out on the piss on Saturday night. It just it's that mentality. It's that mentality. Most United players, most Arsenal players will be doing their bit at home, not on the piss. And he's a Villa player. sorry to, I know I like Villa. It's quite local to where I live, but what you're doing going out on the piss. I mean, one, what you're doing going out, you're a prat. You've just done a video saying don't do it. Two, what you're doing going out getting pissed up. Three, what you're doing getting in a car. He's made 3 huge errors there, and unfortunately, I hate it as a British guy. It does reflect bad on us compared to the foreign players. Because I want to ask you about Bruno in a minute, who just don't have this mentality. Whether it's your Juan Matas, your Mikel Artetas, your Dennis Bergkamps, they just haven't had it, and they don't have it.
No, or they don't let anyone see it.
Yeah, intelligence as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe some of these players are posting up all these great exercise videos and eating healthy and training and that. And maybe behind closed doors at night, they're getting pissed with the wife and, you know, the missus and whatnot. But we don't see that. So what does that matter to us? You know,
clever.
Exactly. What we see is them training. I look at him. He's working his backside off in training today at home in isolation. Great. He wants to go and get pissed up with a wife later in the evening, or, you know, he might not have a missus. He might live in isolation with his friends and they're all having a drink together. That's fine. You're in your own home. You're not doing anything. You're not publicizing it. But Jack Grealish has gone out. He's actually gone out. His mate has contacted him. First and foremost, I think Jack Grealish needs to look at his friends. Because if your friend is contacting you to say, why don't you come around mine? Let's get on the beers and whatnot, given the current situation, you've got to ask, is he really your friend? First and foremost. And this is half of the problem with a lot of these footballers, that they've got people around them, not really friends. They're just hangers-on.
We had a comment here. I won't read them out because it's not fair, because I don't want him to get any stick. But he said, Grealish isn't a robot. He's used to being outside all the time. He has to make a video saying he's staying in. He doesn't want to. You go out, I go out, others go out. I don't know whether that's just sarcasm or too late for April Fools, but I don't go out. DT's not going out. Most people watching this aren't going out. He's a prat for going out. This is not. He's not a bloody dog that needs some fresh air. We're all struggling with it, but we're all doing it for a reason, because people are actually dying. Thanks for the contribution from Billy. I want to ask you this. There was a good question that came in a moment ago about where you see your club in 5 years' time. And being as you're on a United fan channel, sort of comparable to United, can you see Arsenal in 5 years' time being, well, where do you see what's acceptable? And do you think they'll be in a better situation than United? It's a hard question, I know, but what sort of plan are you looking at as an Arsenal fan now? We hear 3 years a lot with United fans.
Well, first and foremost, next season is probably what we would class as, you know, the first season under a manager, the first full season where you give them that season and it's anything goes really, unless you're obviously abysmal beyond all comparison. Then, you know, that first season is always one where you kind of get to gauge things. They have their first transfer window. You know, you really start to see the ideas that they want to implement on the side. So that's Mikel Arteta's first full season next year. And then by the second season, you've got to see some kind of challenge, not so much for the title, but challenge for, you know, those top 3 spaces, shall I say, where, you know, we're going away from home to a Manchester United, to Chelsea. And it's not like, oh, God, here we go, we're going to lose today. It's like, you know what, we got a chance today. And we put in a real good performance. You know, last couple of years, I know we've drawn with Manchester United, but we've gone into both games against Manchester United away. Last couple of times where you've been so hit with injuries that we should be walking all over you. But we haven't. And we've not won the game. And we're looking at it and going, oh, do you know what? A draw ain't too bad at Old Trafford in comparison to recent results. But given the circumstances, you know,
you were favourites in both of those, really, to be honest.
That's what I mean. You know, the bigger sides will go to the likes of Old Trafford when they haven't got most of their players playing, and they will give you a spanking, but not Arsenal. So within the second year, we've got to see progression in terms of challenging. And then I think by the third and fourth year is when you've really got to start challenging right at the top to see real progression. And you kind of map the path that Liverpool have done, because they're the most recent model, shall we say, that have done that with giving their manager time. You know, it wasn't easy for Klopp at the beginning, first 3 years or so, didn't win a trophy. And a lot of clubs could have turned around and went, right, that's it, bye-bye, out the door, off you go. But they stuck with him. They believed in his ideas. They backed him. That's an important key as well. And now look, Champions League winners, 2 finals in a row, should be Premier League champions. So, yeah, I just feel that after that 3-year period, and in terms of Man United, God, that's so difficult because Man United have been like a yo-yo since Ferguson's left. I think in 6 seasons since Ferguson's left, Arsenal finished above Man United 5 times. And given the fact that we're in a poor state, shows what kind of poor state Man United are in, that they can't even finish above us. So, are Man United going to stick with Solskjaer? Are they going to get to a point where they have another bad run? And then they finally go, right, no, we've got to pull the trigger now, and then get maybe a Pochettino or whatnot in. And then it's a rebuilding process again, because another manager comes in and then he goes, well, I don't like that player and I don't like that player, and I want this player, that player. So it's a never-ending cycle, and that's Man United's biggest problem, that they've had so many managers since Ferguson left. One gets a transfer window, buys what he wants, another comes in and goes, well, I don't like that one, I want this one. He goes and does what he wants in a window, and then another manager comes in, and it's another cycle. So, yeah, that's just...
I think, I mean, look, from Arsenal's point of view, I think you would agree, maybe you would agree, that they definitely are probably where I think United were maybe a year ago, where we probably need, as the first stage, 4 good signings and rid of 3 or 4 players, and you need to do that for 2 or 3 years. That's going to be difficult. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on Bruno Fernandes, because that Bruno Fernandes signing for United, I thought it was a brilliant signing at the time. I'd wanted us to sign him for a long time. But in a very lucky way, it's a very brilliant signing anyway, because we've bought a very significant player in January, where a lot of clubs, maybe Arsenal, certainly Chelsea, Spurs, were like, we're not going to do any business in January, we'll wait till the summer. And we're now going into this summer where, well, will clubs be able to spend money? Also, will clubs want to sell? It's a very, very turbulent summer we're going into. And it's a summer that teams like yourself and Chelsea and United to a certain extent, although we did get Bruno, which I'm happy about, you need a rebuild. How do you rebuild in a market like this if it's not the same market? It's difficult, isn't it? You might have to spend another year with players that, and it's unfortunate for Arteta, he might have to stick with players that he was already thinking about, I'm going to move in, I'm going to bring out. Different dynamics next season, I think.
Yeah, massive difference in the way that we might approach things. And you're lucky you got that business done, to be honest. And I've seen Bruno live anyway, because Arsenal played Sporting last season in the Champions League.
Yeah, dream on. Neither of us are there.
That situation I've been in, that I can still think we're in the Champions League, in the Europa League, shall I say. So I've seen him at first hand, and he didn't actually do much against us, and we kept him quiet. But he's obviously a player that was very good in the Portuguese league, but you will always have that question mark of going, it's the Portuguese league. Will you be able to go and do it in the Premier League? And since he's came into the Premier League, he's been absolutely brilliant, to be fair. And he's gave Manchester United a different dimension. He's gave them a bit of thrust in the final third that they were missing. They've gone from Lingard, who was living on what he'd done 2-3 years ago when he had a purple patch.
Well, you wouldn't take Lingard at Arsenal, would you? I mean, just a very quick question.
Mate, I wouldn't take Lingard at DTFC. Sorry, but he's just absolutely dreadful. And I just think that because he's a local boy, come through the youth ranks, I think that he gets a bit more leeway than some other footballers may get, because they hold on to this whole... Man United have got this ethos, and they've got this thing that they like to bring in that product, that young homegrown talent, like a Rashford and whatnot, and like the class of 92, for example. They like to live on that sense of bringing one of their own in. And I feel that Lingard's got way too many chances based on that fact. Whereas maybe if he was not homegrown and from the youth setup, he would have probably been kicked out the door a long time ago. But Bruno, yeah, he's been a brilliant signing, and I think that you've got yourself a bargain, to be honest with you, when you look at the price paid, given where the market's going to go, because some clubs could be in financial ruins, and you could use that to get players cheaper. Or on the flip side, you've got teams like Borussia Dortmund that are already talking about Jadon Sancho and saying, we're not going to be in financial problems. You ain't getting a bargain, 110 million. You want him, come and get him. We're not going to stand in his way, but there's the price. And you're not going to be able to bargain with teams like Borussia Dortmund. Because
there's a moral question there as well. We started the show talking about that if United go and spend 110 million in July for Jadon Sancho and somebody's losing their house and their business, it's I don't actually think I think a lot of players are going to have to stay where they maybe don't want to stay. You know, Mbappe, Neymar, PSG, Pogba at United, Sancho may have to stay at Dortmund for a year. I think unless clubs really do allow swaps or realistic, massive lowering of valuations, I just don't see our club. Well, you know, if Arsenal's got 60 million, do you go and spend it on a player that was worth 60 million 2 months ago? Or do you go, no, I want to pay 30 million because of the market we're in? It's like fans are greedy for signings because we need them. You need them. We'd love Sancho, but actually, responsibly, clubs might have to make some very difficult decisions. And then if you go into next season with your same squad, you're probably not as confident as you were thinking you might be because Arteta's not getting the summer he wants. I think from United's point of view, we desperately need Sancho, but I still think we'd be a good shout for top four with the squad that we've got with Pogba back. So I don't think we're too badly placed, even though we want to sign players. Yeah. I think from your point of view and Chelsea's point of view, it could be a problem next season.
Yeah, I think Arsenal's biggest problem is Mesut Ozil, given the fact that he's on 350 grand a week. He's got a year left. And given the current situation, he's probably one of the players that Arsenal are probably going, you know what, let's get him out of the door. And then we can afford to give wages to Aubameyang and say, here you go, that's what you need to stay. But we may end up losing Aubameyang because we can't get rid of Ozil. And that really winds me up because I know which one produces when he plays for the team and which one don't. So, you know, there's no doubt in Mesut Ozil's talent and what he was and everything else, but he's not that player anymore. He's not that player, and he's not going to go and change the games, and he doesn't justify 350 grand a week. But who in world football is going to give Mesut Ozil that kind of wages?
You're stuck with him, mate. You're exactly the same as what we've got with Sanchez. Thanks for that. But he's on 400 grand a week. He's not a very good player anymore. You'd also want a fee. Nobody was going to do it 2 months ago. They're definitely not going to do it now. And then it's like you get some fans who say, we can compare on this. It's the same with Sanchez and as you said with Ozil. How do you solve that problem? Some fans say, I'll chuck him in the youth setup. There might be something in his contract that doesn't allow that. You know, we've all played Football Manager. These contracts stipulations aren't just exclusive to Football Manager. There's ridiculous contracts out there. Ozil could have something in his contract that he's got to start 40% of the game. You know, it becomes a massive problem, and it's the same with Solskjaer as Arteta. You feel for the manager because it's not there. They've not made that choice. This was Woodward and bloody Mourinho with Sanchez. Wenger probably bought Ozil. So it's like massive problems with a player like that, and the disruption in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, and well, it was Wenger's last season when they gave Ozil that big contract, and it was. I feel that the only reason why Arsenal gave him that contract was because we had lost Alexis. So it was kind of like, right, we need to appease the fans. We need to get them back on side because they're going mad at us losing Alexis. So let's show that we can pay big wages. Let's show that we can compete at the top level. Here we go, Mesut Ozil, 350 grand a week. Everyone's going to forget about Alexis. They're going to look at it and go, wow, Arsenal can pay the big wages. Yes, here we go. Nah, it's just been absolutely downhill, isn't it? So, it's depressing.
They are problematic. Brandon Duffy, I put it on the screen quite simply to say you've got to get up earlier in the morning to catch me out. That isn't. I see it a mile off, and I know that one, but that you have made a contribution, so we'll put it up on the screen for people. Right. Let's get into this then. What I'd like to do for the next few minutes is, people, if you can just chuck us some comparison players, and we'll go through on it, because I'm sure we won't agree on all of them. They don't have to be Man United and Arsenal. I'll start off with one though. Ozil and Lingard. Some people have been talking about that there. For me, it's Ozil. As bad as he's been.
Mate, Mesut Ozil could have one leg and it'd still be better than Lingard. That's just the worst comparison. At least make it...
I like this one. Reddy HD says Xhaka or Matic. I'll let you go first because you're the guest on these.
In terms of what they've won, you'd have to say Matic.
Are you a fan of Xhaka? I mean, I always think with Xhaka... One thing I like about Xhaka, which I don't like, he's a bit like people didn't like Herrera for. He's a bit of a shithouse when you come up against him. He will put a tackle in and that, but I'm not a big fan of Matic. Yeah. But he has been brilliant for us this last month. So if you're going on recent form, I'd say Matic, he has been brilliant. But I don't know, as an outsider, you would realise that.
Yeah, but you'd say that as well. But since Arteta's came in, Granit Xhaka's been one of our best players. So if you're going on recent form as well, I would say Granit Xhaka. The only thing Matic gets over Granit Xhaka is achievements, and but that was more when he was at Chelsea, in terms of winning the Premier League and whatnot. But yeah, I'll go Granit Xhaka, and I do rate him. I do, and he's had a really good couple of months under Mikel Arteta as well. There's no doubt what he's got there. It's just seeing it on a consistent basis.
There you go. We'll agree to disagree on that one. I'll go Matic on that one. Here's another good one. It's Arsenal United again. Fred or Torreira. I've got to say, I said when you bought Torreira, which was it the start of this season or the last one? I thought he was brilliant. And then he just seemed to disappear a bit. But I thought he was a really good signing when you bought him. Same summer we bought Fred. So yeah, a year and 18 months ago.
Do you know what the issue is with Torreira is that he came and he started and he was absolutely superb. And then he had that little spell where he kind of dipped out of form a bit. And that happens with new signings, new country, new language and everything else. They can kind of hit the ground running. And then they have that little period where they don't have a Christmas break and everything else. And it kind of catches up with them a bit. And then towards the end of last season, he had a really good run again. And then we went into this season. And for some reason, Unai Emery decided that Lucas Torreira was going to go from being such a solid defensive midfielder to being a number 10. And only God knows why Unai Emery thought that to be logical. So in terms of their positions, for me, it's Torreira all day long, because I rate the guy, and I rated him when he was at Sampdoria. I spoke about him when he was at Sampdoria. You watched him in the World Cup. And there was a game in particular against Portugal when he was dealing with the likes of Ronaldo and whatnot. And that was one of the first times when everyone went, wow, do you know what? This guy that Arsenal are looking is pretty decent. And I think it's only been in the last few months that Fred's really kind of stepped forward at Manchester United. I think that Manchester United fans, for the first year of his career at Man United, were comparing him to Fred Flintstone.
I'm going to disagree. I like Torreira. I haven't noticed Torreira much this season. And Fred, for us, has just been player of the... If we didn't have Wan-Bissaka, he'd be player of the year since October. So we'll agree to disagree on that one. I like this next one. Sancho or Mbappe?
Killing Mbappe. For as good as Jadon Sancho is and everything, Mbappe, man. He's 18, 19, and he won a World Cup. And he wasn't just playing on the bench for France. He was one of the main guys and scoring the goals. Imagine being 18, 19 and getting a World Cup. And, mate, he's just a phenomenon. And he's going to be the one that takes over, in my opinion, from the Ronaldo and Messi when they finally retire.
The only thing I'd say about Mbappe, and I do put him ahead of Sancho as much as I like Sancho, and I think Sancho will be great for both England and whoever he goes to. I just want to see Mbappe leave France, the league France. I think he needs to go to La Liga. I'd love to see him in the Premier League. I don't see him going to Germany or Italy yet. So I want to see him go to a bigger club. And I know PSG is a big club, but that league's too easy for him. You want to see him tested week in, week out. And I've always said that about PSG players. This one's good. Not Michael Carrick or Kante. That's not the one I wanted to talk about. A few people said Williams or Saka. Brandon Williams at United or Saka I'm going to go first on this one because it'll be controversial. I'm going to go Saka. And I don't like doing that, but it just shows that I can not be biased because I saw Saka play against us in the autumn and he played left wing. And I thought he was fantastic. I've seen him play a few times at left back and I was like, that's not going to work. And it has. And I just think that's the edge on Williams for me, is that he has shown two positions fantastically well at a time where Arsenal are under a lot of pressure. So I think he looks a very exciting player for the future in general.
Yeah, well, we're going to agree on that one. Most definitely double figures for assists this season. The fact that he's came in at left back to fill the void because of injuries, and it's like a duck to water. He's been absolutely superb, and you know, he's right up there as being one of our players of the season, easily.
I'll see how biased you are then. Rashford or Lacazette?
Do you know what the thing is? I've said this all along. I don't really rate Marcus Rashford. I really don't.
We have got United fans who don't rate him. So as an Arsenal fan, I thought you might go Lacazette, but I thought I'd just throw that one as a tempter.
Do you know what? The only thing I will say is with Lacazette is that he's had a poor season. I don't get away from that. But last season, he was Arsenal's player of the year. And he had a fantastic season. You know, and Rashford, again, I just bring a lot of it down to the homegrown. You know, and I've seen some people trying to compare Rashford to Mbappe. Seriously.
I'll tell you what, though, you might not have been watching him, but before he got his back injury from November to January, he was crap up front. As soon as he went to left wing, I think he was one of the best players in Europe. I thought he was apt. And he's had a difficult time. Martial's the same. And I sympathise with him under Mourinho because he'll kill any attacker. But this season, off that left wing, I mean, it's easy Rashford for me. I think he's a fantastic player. And I think he's still got a lot to learn. But he's easy Rashford for me. But I thought you might go with that one. There's another one here that's really good. And I missed it. I know what it was. Grealish or Maddison. So, yeah, Grealish or Maddison.
I think Grealish has had a better season. I think a more consistent season in a more struggling side. So I would have to say, based on this season, Jack Grealish, because he's had a better season against, you know, and Leicester, they're a good side, sitting third in the Premier League. Maddison started the season great, and then he's had a real dip in the last couple of months. So I'd say, yeah, for the moment, I'd say Grealish has probably had the better season than Maddison.
Keep them coming. You're giving us some good ones now. I like this one. H. Mark says Mustafi or Phil Jones. It's got to be Mustafi. I mean, at least he actually does play regularly. I don't know what's happened to Phil. I think even Ollie realises Jones is crap now because he keeps playing Maguire and Lindelof, even if they're off. You know, it's like Maguire and Lindelof are like those players when you've been playing on FIFA and then the red bit and he'll still pick them because you don't want to pick Phil Jones.
Yeah, just don't. No, Phil Jones. I just don't get how he's a footballer, to be honest with you, especially not at Manchester United.
I don't. He's not even got the youth card. And look, in real life, Phil Jones is a top guy. I know people who know him, but we're judging footballers here, and I think people don't realise that you can proper go in on a footballer because you're judging them for what they're paid a lot of money to do. It's like a comedian. You know, they're paid to play football. We're not paid to like them as individuals. That's a bonus. But you know, Phil Jones is a nice guy, but as a footballer, I agree. I just don't get how he survived so long. You've got to give him credit. He's a bit like a cockroach in a nuclear war, isn't he? He just survives, which is a talent in itself. I'm not going to do that one. I don't like that one. It's an interesting one. A bit of a classic. Van Dijk versus Vidic. Always gets mentioned a lot.
See, I rated Vidic. I really liked him. I thought he was a very old school defender. Would put his face, you know, in the way of everything. One of those type of players. I think that on the ball and the way that he plays, Virgil van Dijk's better. But Virgil van Dijk's still got to do what he's doing more consistently and win the big trophies consistently to be up there with Vidic. You know, Vidic, I don't know what his stats are in terms of trophies won at Manchester United, but he's one of the main reasons why Manchester United was so good at that period, and he was at the heart of the defence. And don't get me wrong, one of the reasons why he was so good as well was because he had the perfect person next to him in Rio Ferdinand, and they complemented each other so well. But yeah, I think Virgil van Dijk's still got a couple of more years or so to go in him before he catches Vidic.
I think this happens a lot, and I know you had it with the Invincible side, and we had it with the 99 side this year. Liverpool are better than this, they're better than that, and until they actually win it, like, why do people even bring them into the conversation? These players that Lineker's terrible for it. He seemed, for a player that was good a long time ago, he just seems to always want the now to be better than the past. And I think you're totally disrespecting what people have achieved in the past. Liverpool hadn't even won a treble, and they were being compared to a treble-winning side. Liverpool weren't even Invincibles, and they're being compared to Invincibles. And lo and behold, they don't get close to either of them. And yet, we're having a conversation 2 months ago. They're definitely better than this. And I really rate Van Dijk, but Vidic for me is just old school, like you say, leader at the back, won plenty of things. And I've never seen anybody in a United shirt, certainly, who goes and wins a ball in the air like he used to win it. It was absolutely fantastic. It's gone by now, but I'd be wrong if I didn't ask you where you sit on the Messi or Ronaldo debate.
Do you know what? I've had this discussion loads of times with people, and I've said, do you know what? Why don't we just enjoy the pair of them? We are so lucky to be alive in a period where we have these two freaks of nature, because that's what they are. They're just freaks. They're just unbelievable. They've both got their own strengths. I don't really think that they've got weaknesses. I suppose the only advantage that Ronaldo's got is that he's done it outside of just one league. And there will always be the question marks. Could Messi do it in the Premier League? We'll go and look at his record against Premier League sides in the Champions League and how many goals he scored.
He's got a lot against you, hasn't he?
I've watched him tear Arsenal apart, score 4 goals in one game. I was sitting up in the gods in the Nou Camp watching him destroy us on more than one occasion. I watched him destroy Manchester United in a Champions League final at Wembley. You can get why he didn't come to the Premier League, but I really wish he had. I know why he hasn't. He's a one-club man, and I get that. But I really wish he had, because Ronaldo does have that over him, and it's a personal choice. But Messi, I think he would have been so interested in the Premier League. Yeah, it would have been unreal to have him in the Premier League. But where would he have gone? And is it still too late for him just to maybe get a couple of years in? Because he doesn't look his age, does he? He doesn't play like his age anyway. And that's why I say that they're freaks of nature. They're just, you look at the pair of them, and even Ronaldo in quarantine, and it's just like, the guy's a freak. He's just an absolute nut job. But that there is, a message to all, not just children, but all footballers, even the likes of Jack Grealish. There's your role model right there. Ronaldo ain't going around his mate's house on a Saturday night and getting pissed and driving his car at 4 a.m. and crashing into cars. Not with that chest. He ain't drinking anything, is he? He ain't doing that. It's unreal. But I don't want to pick either one of them. I just think that we should appreciate the pair of them for what they are and just realize how lucky we are to be alive in this period. And now I'll ask you one. Who out of the Premier League era is your pick of, the best English player of the last, 30 years? Obviously, they will have played for England as well, I presume. But, who stands out for you? There's a few. I'd say in terms of the striking options, England would be Alan Shearer, all-time Premier League record goal scorer. He had that period at Blackburn where they were the Chelsea at the time, shall we say, the Chelsea or the Man City for a year. But predominantly he played at an underperforming Newcastle side against a very dominant Manchester United and Arsenal, period. So Alan Shearer, Rio Ferdinand, I thought was an unbelievable defender. I just feel that he tainted his legacy a bit with that whole drugs thing and not turning up to a drugs test and whatnot and being like, I didn't realise I had to do a piss test. Yeah, of course you did, mate. Pains me to say it, but Ashley Cole. As a footballer, unbelievable. As a human, he's a prick.
So many are, don't, you know, people get lost in that. I think, you know, judge them as a footballer because a lot of them are like that, aren't they?
Yeah, and obviously got to go with the goalkeepers as well. David Seaman, loved him as a goalkeeper, seen him week in, week out. So there's that preference. Sol Campbell, crossing the divide, becoming an invincible and everything else. Tony Adams, of course. Looking at Manchester United, and you've got the older heads like Steve Bruce and Pallister and all them. Obviously, you Wayne Rooney's.
Who would you? Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd asked this one actually. They were going to do this, and obviously the coronavirus thing has stopped it. This Premier League Hall of Fame thing, which is very American, and they've been doing it for a long time. They were going to release the first 2 Hall of Famers. Now there was talk of Shearer, which I totally get, and I think there was talk of maybe a Bergkamp or an Henry. And I think from a United point of view, there was rumours that they might go for a Keane or a Giggs or a Cantona. I'm sure they're all going to get it at some point. But what 2 would you go for?
You would have to go with Ryan Giggs, given the fact that he has more Premier League titles than anybody in history. And he was an ever-present, consistent. And I think that people need to look past the personal side of things and the fact that, you know, he was sleeping with his brother's missus for so long and whatnot. Let's think about football and on the pitch. So I would say Ryan Giggs. And then the other would be Thierry Henry, because for me, he's still the best foreign import in the Premier League history. He's just an insane footballer. And, you know, people that have never watched him or been lucky enough to watch him live, I've never seen anything like him in my life. Just, it's like a swan on water. It just glides across the pitch. I've watched him destroy every team, you know, in the Premier League, from Manchester United to Chelsea to City to Liverpool to everyone. And I've watched him, all-time Arsenal record goal scorer. It's just a phenomenal player, man. So for me, Giggs and Henry would be the first 2.
That's interesting. I mean, look, I remember Henry in his prime, and you know, we had Van Nistelrooy, and you tried to say who's the better player, and it just became very obvious that Henry was just on a different level. He did have a massive impact. I mean, it's a shame Ronaldo went to Real Madrid when he did, because for the 3 years really, we weren't a one-man team because we had such good players, but he just from the wing as well, he was just unbelievable. I think Roy Keane deserves a shout, but I would agree with Giggs. And to be honest with you, I think Giggs should get it for the reasons you've said there, because he's won it the most. I think you could argue about your captains, whether you go Keane or Terry or even someone like a Tony Adams. And I think you're right. I think going back to what you were on about before, I think Shearer does deserve a lot of credit because he did it year in, year out. He had a very bad injury when he first moved to Blackburn. And I think Henry would be a fair shout as well. So it'd be interesting. I mean, I just hope that they do give it to those sort of players before they start going to people like Gerrard and Lampard and Scholes, because I think we get lost in that debate that realistically only ever became a debate for me because Sven-Goran Eriksson was a bottle job and didn't dare just pick players and try to put them all in the same team. That's where Scholes, Lampard and Gerrard comes from. That was Eriksson's job to decide, not the public. They were all great players for their clubs.
Yeah, Sven-Goran Eriksson. Let's not get onto that subject. I think he ruined our best ever period that we should have actually won something as a nation.
100%. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on again. I enjoyed that last bit as well, and it's good that you're keeping well. I presume you're still doing your regular content on your own channel. Yeah,
doing my regular stuff, daily shows. I'm going to be doing some more live stuff, but bringing people on. I want to do a few, like quizzes and stuff like that. So get people on from other channels and stuff, and they can ask me questions about Arsenal and I'll ask them questions about their respective clubs. It's just about getting on with things at the moment. That's all it is. It's just getting on with things. We can't do anything about it. We can't change the situation. We've just got to just keep our heads down, keep working hard, look after our families, and then we'll come out on the other side, and then we can start hating each other again.
And I think that's the key. I think over the next 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, because it's all new, we're still looking back to the time before. I think over the next few weeks, we'll get to a point where we're starting to look forward to the end of it. And, you know, it is a mental struggle. Everybody needs to acknowledge that. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. But cheers for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're back. Well, I'm trying to think what date it is. Wednesday. So 8 o'clock tonight, we'll be back on the United Stand. But enjoying doing these things at lunchtime and really appreciate you coming on, pal.
No worries. Pleasure, mate.